have made a virtue of their small size, but with this second-generation version of the brand's Countryman crossover, the idea is to show that the marque can also produce a credible family-sized contender too. It's smartly turned out with some clever little features, plus there's the option of four-wheel drive and even plug-in hybrid power. In short, this car might surprise you.
Want a family-sized Mini? Then you probably want this one, the second-generation Countryman. It's the biggest car the company's ever made, and it could also be this maker's most significant contender too. There's something a bit contradictory about the idea of a large family-sized Mini, yet apparently something quite appealing too. The first time the BMW brand introduced such a thing with the first generation version of this Countryman launched back in 2010, well over 500,000 models were eventually sold, which was impressive given that original design's somewhat muddled remit. To begin with, it was merely a Mini for folk who wanted sensible standards of space, but as the years progressed, the Countryman's positioning was subtly altered to suit the segment where the sales were, that for compact crossovers. Even then, it never quite hit the spot. Too large and expensive to appeal to buyers in this sector looking at Super Mini-based models like Nissan's Juke and Renault's Captur, but not large enough to suit families looking instead at family hatch-based contenders like Nissan's Qashqai and Renault's Kadjar. A bit of a rethink was needed, which is what's brought us a Mark II model that's large enough to properly position itself in the Qashqai class, 20 centimetres longer than before, with proper room for 5 adults and a boot 100 litres bigger. The 2-litre engines offered on many models are larger too, plus there's a choice of front or four-wheel drive and up to the minute media connectivity. There's even plug-in hybrid power if you want it. A more credible contender then, though one very different in concept from many of the things this charismatic brand used to represent. Now, the Countryman name is borrowed from the old Austin designation for estate cars in times past, models with quaint wood adornment on their rear ends. This, in contrast though, is no Countryman for old men, aiming instead to appeal to younger buyers who've outgrown smaller Minis but not their appetite for the brand. Will those people like what they find here though? And will their second generation models reach out beyond them? Let's put this car to the test. Given this car's size and price, you'd expect it to be a more grown-up thing than the smaller Mini models, so safer, more spacious and able to cover longer distances. But as any teenager will tell you, being grown-up can also mean being boring. So, does driving a Countryman feel like driving a Mini? Well, set off down the road and first impressions are that to some extent it does. The ride is very firm and you get this remarkably quick steering, which immediately gives the car a keener feeling than you get in most crossover rivals. We're quite aware, of course, that not everyone buying a car in this segment wants that. For sure, there will be quite a few Qashqai class buyers out there who will find the springing on this car to be stiffer than they would like, and that's an issue that's inevitably exacerbated with larger wheel sizes and only partly alleviated by the optional adaptive damping system. If, on the other hand, you haven't yet quite abandoned the desire for driving enjoyment, then you might take the view that all of this is a worthwhile trade-off for the way that one of these allows a little friskiness on the way back from the school run. It's best not to get too carried away though. Throw the car hard into a corner and the touch of understeer and body roll you get make it immediately obvious that you're driving something quite different from the Minis that some of us know and love. This model's crossover class pretensions see it riding quite a bit higher than models from the brand that are only intended for tarmac use. Plus, in comparison to, say, a 5-door Mini hatch, this Countryman is nearly 300 kilos heavier. Now, both these issues have to make a dynamic difference, and they do. It's not enough, though, to detract from a firm, fun and friendly feel that's very different from the kind of thing that's served up by most contemporary segment competitors. With this Mini, you simply point the car where you want it to go and it turns in with precision and masses of grip, especially on quicker models that come fitted with a performance control system to maximise cornering traction. In that regard, it certainly helps that the car that we're trying here has the extra cost all-4 four-wheel drive system, system that's optional across the mainstream range and is able to send power to every wheel for the best possible traction. Now, in normal circumstances, this setup drives only the front wheels, but as soon as a loss of grip is detected, up to 100% of engine torque can, if necessary, be sent rearwards. Ah, yes, engines. Now, we should talk about those. This represents another area in which this Countryman shows signs of its more grown-up approach. Instead of the 1.6-litre units offered by the original version of this model, the range is now mainly based around twin-power turbo power plants of 2 litres in size. Now, maybe, like us, you can't get used to the idea of an engine quite that big in a Mini, but the package seems to work well enough, especially in the 150 bhp Cooper D diesel guys that we're trying here, the variant that probably represents the sweet spot in the range. With a healthy 330 Nm of pulling power on offer, overtaking punch is readily available, and 62 miles an hour occupies only 8.9 seconds en route to 129 miles an hour if you're quick with the rather notchy 6-speed manual gearbox. As an option, you can order this car with 8-speed automatic transmission, and that's a gearbox that you have to have if you want the extra poke of the 190 bhp Cooper SD model. Thanks to 400 Nm of torque, that derivative improves the performance figures to 7.7 seconds and 137 miles an hour. Of course, you may be one of those not necessarily wedded to the idea of black pump motoring, and if so, your Mini dealer will want you to peruse the various petrol options. Ideally, of course, you would want the storming 231 bhp flagship John Cooper Works performance model, which only comes with the all-4 system and which makes 62 miles an hour in 6.5 seconds en route to 145 miles an hour. Realistically, though, we have to point out you can get much the same thing with slightly more restrained packaging from a much more affordable Cooper S variant that uses the same engine in 192 bhp form. Now here, 62 mph from rest occupies 7.5 seconds en route to 140 miles an hour, or 7.3 seconds and 138 miles an hour if you opt for that all-4 version. As with the Cooper D, the petrol performance derivatives get the option of an 8-speed Steptronic auto, although with these models that is supplied in quicker shifting sport form, complete with steering wheel change paddles. We should finish our power plant perusal by pointing out that not all models in the range feature large 2-litre engines. The entry-level 136 bhp petrol Cooper variant uses a smaller Mini Hatch's 1.5-litre 3-cylinder unit, which you might feel could be out of its depth hauling along nearly 1.5 tonnes of Countryman. Actually, though, there's little need for concern. This power plant happily copes with a heavier BMW 318i, so it's quite willing enough to deal with this installation, making 62 miles an hour in 9.6 seconds en route to 126 mph, which is a level of performance considerably better than that served up by entry-level petrol-powered versions of rivals like Nissan's Qashqai, Kia's Sportage, or the Audi Q2. As with the more powerful models, there are all-4 and auto options here, although the auto is Mini's older 6-speed Steptronic unit. This 1.5-litre petrol unit also features in what is, without doubt, the most interesting variant in the Countryman range, the plug-in hybrid model. That's only available with the 6-speed Steptronic auto gearbox and somewhat clumsily titled the Cooper SE Countryman All-4. Now here, the little twin-power turbo engine is paired with an 88 bhp motor mated to a lithium-ion battery pack, and that's enough to generate a total system output of 224 bhp. As the name of this hybrid variant suggests, it comes only with all-4 four-wheel drive. Well, with 385 Nm of torque on offer, you'd want that. Now that's quite a lot for such a compact car, hence the rapid 6.8 seconds 0 to 62 sprint time. More relevant, though, is this variant's ability to run on electric power alone for up to 25 miles. To help maximise efficiency, what Mini calls an eDrive toggle switch is provided that lets you swap between 3 modes, which are entitled Auto eDrive, Max eDrive and Save Battery. In the first of these settings, the car will work on electric power alone up to 50 miles an hour, but if you select Max eDrive, the all-electric top speed will be raised to 78 miles an hour. In the save battery position, the electric element is disconnected so that energy can be stored for future use, say for the end of a trip that'll involve a degree of urban motoring. Talking of driving settings, we should point out that the more conventionally engined models can feature their own set of modes too, providing you pay extra for the MINI driving mode system. One of those ones that tweaks the throttle response, the steering feel, the stability control thresholds, and on the auto gearbox models, the gear shift timings too, to suit the way that you want to drive. Now, via this rather hidden selector down at the base of the gear stick, there's a standard mid setting and a frugally orientated green mode. Plus, there's also a third sport option for when the road opens up and the red mist begins to fall. That's something echoed appropriately by the red glow around the central display, and slightly less subtly by a picture of a countryman on a racetrack. If you can go further and also add into your car the additional option of the variable damper control that we mentioned earlier, those settings will also vary the ride quality to suit your mood. So we'll finish by returning to the subject of four-wheel drive. Now, no Qashqai class crossover is intended for any sort of serious off-road use, and this one is especially compromised in that regard thanks to a particularly limited level of ride height, which makes the provision of a fun feature, this model's MINI Country timer, all the more puzzling. It's standard on all variants, even the front-driven ones, and will register and record all travel over sloping, uneven, unsurfaced or snow-covered roads and tracks. In the unlikely event of you being able to drive frequently in this kind of terrain, the Country timer would progress you from street cruiser to cliff champ status. I'm not going to tell you what we think of that. So, welcome to the largest and most versatile car MINI has ever brought us. Now, you recognise this model's maker from just a glance, even though, like its showroom stablemates, this Countryman's design shares almost nothing with its British predecessors. Now, the original version of this model seemed huge when we first saw it back in 2010, but since then the brand has brought us a succession of super-sized contenders that have made the concept of family-sized MINI motoring less contradictory. The Paceman, the Clubman, and now, biggest of all, this second-generation Countryman. Now, quite a few styling techniques are being used here to make this car still seem quite compact, but the truth is it's a significantly larger thing than before. The increased 4.3 metre length, leaving it 20 centimetres longer and 3 centimetres wider than the first generation model. Now, that is enough to make it properly Qashqai sized and a credible contender at last in the volume part of the compact crossover segment. As well as that increase in size, there's a more aggressive demeanour this time around, exemplified primarily by headlights whose asymmetric shape is emphasised by a bright LED ring. There's certainly a lot going on here at the front, with a hexagonal radiator grille, a bold bumper and large lower fog lamp units flanking the lower grille, all fighting for prominence. Move to the side, and that extra size we talked about gives this car a sense of substance that its predecessor lacked, with the added 7.5 centimetres of wheelbase length emphasised by this silver-finished lower sill cover. That's one crossover cue, but there are also plenty of others, including roof rails and black plastic wheel arch surrounds that can house rims of up to 19 inches in size. We've got the 18 inches here. Shiny side vents house indicators, and in true MINI style, there's the option of a contrast-coloured roof, which is offered in black, red or white colours that are also matched on the door mirrors. An interesting styling touch lies with this thicker rear roof section. Now, MINI calls that the helmet roof, which makes an interesting focal point of the rear quarter-light window. And at the rear, well, the simple slab-sided tailgate of the old model has made way for something busier, but not necessarily better. The number plate, which was previously located between the tailpipes, has been moved right up so it can sit more centrally. And there's another prominent bumper, this one with built-in corner reflectors. And just above these sit large, vertically stacked tail lamp clusters. Just below lies a chrome-trimmed exhaust. As usual, though, what's more significant is the stuff you can't see. In this case, the stiff, sophisticated UKL2 platform this model sits on. And that's the same as that used by MINI's Club and Family hatch and BMW's X1 compact crossover. Time to take a seat up front, where, to be frank, it doesn't feel especially SUV-like in terms of either the decor or the raised seat positioning. Crucially, though, you do feel like you're in a Mini, which is all important if this Countryman is going to set itself apart from more ordinary rivals. A BMW talks of these neat toggle switches being a traditional brand design cue, though we don't remember anything like that on the 50s original. A better reference point to the early British model lies with this enormous dinner plate size central dash display, although these days this doesn't house an almost indecipherable speedometer. That gauge has been relocated to a pod above the steering wheel, where it's flanked with a crescent moon rev counter. There's a feel of individuality here too that's down to a range of thoughtful features. The start-stop central toggle tab, for example, with its heartbeat illumination which pulses before the engine is started. Or you might be struck by the way that the ambient lighting system bathes the cabin in a range of classy colours. Then there are little optional touches like these illuminated fascia inlays, the Union Jack logo on the bottom spoke of the steering wheel, which references the Mini Oxford production line, and the tartan mats that are used to stop small items from moving around in the stowage areas. All of which would of course be irrelevant if the basic ergonomics were to be wayward. Now fortunately that isn't the case. Now in contrast to Mini models of the past, the window switches are properly located on the doors, the column stalks don't feel like they have the structural integrity of a big biro, and it's easy to find a fine driving position. Now a neat touch in this regard is the way that the complete instrument pod moves up and down as you adjust the steering wheel, so you always have a good view of the vital dials. And on the helmet itself, there are remote controls for the stereo and the Bluetooth hands-free phone connection, as well as for the cruise control. As for that circular centre dash screen we alluded to earlier, well, as we said, it's a cabin focal point, and not only because of its size, but also due to LED perimeter lights around its edge, which progressively illuminate in different colours when you do things like switch to driving modes, engage the engine stop-start, or count down to your next sat-nav turn-off. As for the monitor itself, well, that can be very clever indeed. It's your access point for the standard navigation system, as well as the DAB stereo setup, the Bluetooth phone telephony, a whole host of journeying informational features, and all the many and varied facets of Mini connected media connectivity. Now, all of that is controllable by this classy and effective iDrive style controller down by the electronic handbrake. We should point out that you don't get this big 8.8-inch screen as standard. It's part of an extra cost Media Pack XL package. You'll want it though, and not only because otherwise you'll be stuck with a smaller 6.5-inch display that, well, gets a bit lost within this enormous circular space. For a start, that optional XL package gives this monitor touchscreen functionality along with crisper 3D mapping, a 20GB jukebox hard drive, and the chance to make full use of various Mini connected apps. And one of these, JourneyMate, we think you'll really like. This enables you to pre-plan journeys on your PC or smartphone and then download them into the car before checking on the weather and getting information on local fuel stations, parking spaces and traffic reports. And in addition, if you've linked the display into your phone diary, it can even function as a personal assistant, prompting you, for example, if you're running late, to call ahead and apologise. Not into media connectivity? Well, then focus instead on cabin quality. Now, admittedly, this test car has been expensively spec'd, but even more modestly trimmed versions are smartly turned out in terms of fit and finish, with cheaper quality plastics relegated to areas that you'll rarely see or touch. Even functional features are nicely fashioned. These upright air vents are exclusively designed for the Countryman, and they get chrome trimming, while the door pockets feature beautifully illuminated coloured strips. On the subject of practicality, we'll also touch on Mini's efforts with regard to cabin storage. Ahead of the gear stick lie twin cup holders and a small storage cubby. Further back lies a larger stowage area with a USB port, and just above is a central armrest that opens to reveal a space that can incorporate a wireless charging point for your phone. Overall then, the interior report card gets a lot of ticks, although there are of course a few things we'd ideally have wanted to change. The glove box isn't that big, there isn't any overhead space for your sunglasses, plus the thick rear pillars can sometimes make visibility difficult when you're reversing. Time to take a seat in the rear, which is a lot easier to do in this second generation Countryman than it was in the original model. The extra body length helps, obviously. And if you happen to be familiar with this model's predecessor, you'll appreciate the difference that makes to the amount of leg and knee room that you get here in the rear. Now, in truth, the old model wasn't really large enough to take a couple of adults comfortably in the back over long distances. This second generation car is, and that is a fundamental difference, enough, in fact, to make this Countryman the most credible family-size car that MINI has ever made. Which is not to say that other rivals in the Qashqai class can't do better. A number can, but if your point of reference is something like a Seat Attica, or indeed the Qashqai, then you'll find this car's standards of rear seat space very class competitive. It's certainly better in this respect than a MINI Clubman, aided by the option that's been taken up here of a sliding bench that you can move backwards or forwards by up to 13 centimetres to either improve passenger legroom or increase boot space. Now, in addition, the seat back can also tilt to achieve the same purpose. As with most rivals, it'd be a squash to fit 3 adults back here, but thanks to a centre transmission tunnel that is notably low, a trio of kids will be just fine. It is a pity you have to pay extra for a centre armrest, though. So let's finish this section by taking a look in the boot, accessible on this particular car by an easy opener powered tailgate that you can activate with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper. That's if you're approaching the car with the key in your pocket and you're laden down with bags or something. Once the hatch is opened, 450 litre space is revealed. To give you a bit of perspective, that's a little more than you get in a rival like a Ford Kuga or a Nissan Qashqai, and a bit less than you'd get in a Volkswagen Tiguan or Kia Sportage. It helps that the loading lip isn't too high, plus provided you've got the optional storage compartment pack fitted that most buyers do specify, you also get a variable load floor, sidewall cargo tensioning straps, tie-down points, a 12-volt socket, an extra boot area light, this useful side stowage net, and a stainless steel insert on this boot sill. If you lift up the cargo bay floor, you're reminded of the fact that MINI doesn't provide any sort of spare wheel as standard, and that is something that we'd normally criticise on a car with SUV pretensions. In this case, though, the brand's decision to make run flat rubber a no-cost option counts in our book as a redeeming factor. Now, while we've got this floor panel up, we'll take the opportunity to pull out this clever little optional feature, the picnic bench. Tug it out and then drape it over the bumper, and you got yourself a neat and surprisingly comfortable padded seat to sit on when you're putting on your wellies or wrestling the kids into their waterproofs. Now, the magazines have sneered at this idea, pointing out that it'd be difficult to get at it if the boot were full. But how often do you travel around with a completely full boot? Further lifestyle functionality is provided by the way that this rear bench folds in a 40-20-40 split, so longer items like skis can be poked through into the cabin while still retaining a couple of rear passenger seats. Fold everything down, and although the space provided isn't quite flat, it does add up to 1,309 litres. That's 220 litres more than the previous generation Countryman could offer. If you move a car up in class, it's perhaps inevitable that it will also move up in price, as is the case here. Now, where previously it was possible to buy a Countryman for well under £20,000, this second generation model was launched at asking figures well above that, with the Coupe variants that most customers choose pitched from just under £23,000 and the diesel models that most customers want costing from just under £25,000. The majority of sales are accounted for either by the base 1.5 litre petrol Coupe variant or the 2 litre diesel Coupe D that we're trying here. Now, in either case, there's the option to spend £1,500 to £1,600 more on Steptronic automatic transmission, and if you want, another £1,600 to £1,700 more on all-4 four-wheel drive. Want a greater degree of powerful frugality beneath the bonnet? Well, then 2 quick but efficient alternatives beckon, both of which come only with auto transmission. The conventional choice is the 190 bhp SD diesel, which costs around £28,000 and offers rest to 62 miles an hour in under 8 seconds and the potential for over 60 mpg. We would be more tempted, though, to find a little extra for something a lot more sophisticated, the plug-in hybrid Cooper SE all-4 petrol model. Now, this electrified variant will cost you only £1,000 more than its SD diesel counterpart once the appropriate £2,500 government plug-in car grant has been subtracted from the initial asking price. Plus, if you go for the hybrid, there's no extra cost for four-wheel drive, the performance figures are quicker, and the efficiency readings much better. In other words, it makes more sense all round. Should the need for speed trump the need for sensibility in your book, then two performance variants beckon, and both are powered by basically the same 2-litre turbo petrol engine. Now, for most, the 192 bhp Cooper S variant will suffice, and in fact, if you've got around £25,000 to spend on a crossover of this kind and you enjoy your driving, then that derivative is probably one of the most satisfying choices you could make. Cooper S buyers, like their counterparts further down the range, have the option of spending around £1,600 more on all four-wheel drive, if that's wanted, and they might also wish to find around £1,700 more for automatic transmission, that extra outlay in this case delivering the quicker reacting sport gearbox. Now, at the top of the lineup, the potent flagship 231 bhp John Cooper Works model comes as standard with all-wheel drive, as you'd hope it would, given this variant's £31,000 asking price. As with the Cooper S, around £1,700 more gets you the Sport Auto gearbox. So, you're up to speed on the Countryman range, but what's the value proposition like here? Well, in answering that, let's start from a Mini perspective. Now, under the skin, this Countryman shares almost everything with the brand's Clubman family hatch, but it costs about £2,000 more model for model. A Countryman costs fractionally more to run than a Clubman 2, but it's more fashionable and it's also more spacious inside. But it's not quite as spacious, though, as another model that it shares almost everything with, the BMW Group's other small crossover contender, the BMW X1. Now, choose one of those with the same engine that you'll find in a Countryman, and you'll be needing around £3,500 more. As for competitors from other brands, well, your perspective here will be coloured a great deal by whether you see this Mini as a slightly more upmarket choice than comparable class competitors like Nissan's Qashqai, Renault's Kadjar, Kia's Sportage, Hyundai's Tucson, Honda's HR-V, or Seat's Attica. Now, if you don't, you may well question Mini's decision to price this car £2,000 to £3,000 above sector heavy hitters like those. Bear in mind, though, that entry-level versions of the models we just mentioned do, in most cases, use smaller output engines than you'll find in this Countryman. So direct comparisons are quite often rather difficult to accurately make. More comparably priced choices you could go for in this crowded class include cars like Audi's Q2, Ford's Kuga, Volkswagen's Tiguan, Peugeot's 3008, Subaru's XV, or the hybrid version of Toyota's CHR. And Mini rather bravely argues that a Countryman is large and sophisticated enough to offer a real alternative to premium badge compact crossovers that cost around £3,500 to £5,000 more. Cars like Audi's Q3, Mercedes GLA, and that BMW X1 model we mentioned earlier. Now, you may disagree, of course. What's not up for discussion is that there are a bewildering number of options in this segment, but we can see plenty of people deciding this Mini to be one of the most appealing of them. Now, if that is your perspective, then you're going to need to know just how generous the brand has been when it comes to standard specification. So, let's take a look at that. So we'll start with the volume Coupe and Coupe D variants that most will want, all of which are smartly turned out with 16-inch Revolite alloy wheels, chromed roof rails, rear parking sensors, front fog lamps and LED daytime running lights. Every Coupe variant also comes with air conditioning, cruise control, an alarm, a trip computer, rear parking sensors, chrome-tipped exhaust pipe and auto headlamps and wipers. Plus, there's an excitement package that offers a choice of interior ambient lighting colours, along with puddle lamps and the door mirrors that project the Mini logo onto the ground at night. Plenty of infotainment capability comes as standard too, via a 6.5-inch colour screen which can be operated from the multifunction steering wheel. Now this monitor is your access point for the MINI Visual Boost radio display, which includes a DAB tuner, plus there's a standard satellite navigation setup and Bluetooth phone connectivity. The display also includes a fun feature, which is the MINI Country Timer, which is there to show the distance that you've travelled on rough tracks, which perhaps might add a little bit of fun to the daily commute. Plus, you also get a suite of so-called MINI connected media features, which includes the option to integrate most Apple devices and also some Android phones into the vehicle. Accessible MINI connected apps include web radio, Facebook, Twitter, plus you can connect in your smartphone calendar into the onboard monitor. So that's essentially your standard tally across the mainstream models in the range. You would expect, though, that the performance variants would come with a little more than that, and so they do. Now move up to the Cooper S, and that's the variant identifiable by its chromed front grille and S badging, and you get larger 17-inch wheels, a two-tone horn, a sports steering wheel and part leather sports seats. If you can afford to go a little further and get yourself a top John Cooper Works model, then you get a more distinctive look, courtesy of 18-inch black thrill alloys and a choice of white, black or red finishes for the roof and the door mirror covers. Other exterior JCW features include black painted roof rails, a unique front bumper with a lower air dam and rear spoiler, plus red trimming for the radiator grille, sports suspension and uprated Brembo brakes. The chunky sports leather steering wheel and more heavily bolstered front seats are also bespoke to that model. But enough with standard equipment. If you're a typical Mini buyer, you'll be seeing this merely as a starting point in creating a very personal package from the extensive options list. So, where to start? Well, there's a simple answer to this and a complicated one. Now, if you want us to keep things simple, we'll tell you to tick two boxes. One for the chili pack that smartens the look and feel of the car, and the other for the activity pack that makes it cleverer and more usable. If beyond that you're also able to add in a few aesthetic niceties, then you'll be ready to go. And you'll have yourself a Countryman that will be very saleable when the time comes to move it on. If that sounds okay to you, then you can flick forward to the end of this section. You might also want a bit of detail though, so we will cover that off now. Now there's a reason that over 75% of Countryman buyers specify that chili pack, namely because it includes a lot of the key extra niceties that most buyers really want, all at a price that's much cheaper than ordering all the individual items separately. So the key inclusion for most buyers is the MINI driving mode system. It allows you to tweak the steering, the throttle and the gear change response to suit the way that you want to drive. Other chili features run to automatic air conditioning, sports seats that are heated and trimmed in part leather, full LED headlights, LED front fog lights, comfort access keyless entry and alloy wheels that go up a size from standard. So for a standard Cooper or Cooper D, for example, you'd be getting 17-inch rims instead of the 16 inches. There's also an included storage compartment pack that comes with a variable load floor, lashing eyes, tensioning straps and a stainless steel insert on the loading sill. If you choose the chili pack, your dealer will also offer you the second pack we mentioned, the activity pack. Now this includes a useful sliding bench that moves the rear seat up to 13 centimetres backwards or forwards to vary passenger and luggage space, and a neat so-called picnic bench, which is essentially a foam pad that folds out over the loading lip so you can sit and put on your walking shoes or merely admire the view. Other activity pack features include an easy opener powered tailgate that you can open with a gesture of a foot beneath the bumper. Plus there's a luggage compartment separating net and a fuel tank that's 10 litres bigger than standard to extend the driving range between fill-ups. Of course, Mini options don't end there. Now, nearly all the items we've just touched on can be ordered separately if you prefer to take an a la carte approach to specifying this Mini. And of course, there are plenty of other packs you could look at. It can all be terribly complicated, so let's try and navigate you as simply as we can through what's available. Now, aside from the two packs we just mentioned, your dealer will also want to bring two further ones to your attention. Popular choice is the Media Pack XL package, and that'll allow you to make much more use of the centre dash infotainment screen. Now with this option box ticked, you'll find that the monitor becomes a touchscreen and it's provided in a larger 8.8-inch form. It'll be your access point for a more sophisticated 3D sat-nav system, and that can display via a useful split screen function, so you can view two things at once. MediaPack XL users get to stream music more easily thanks to an enhanced Bluetooth with USB audio feature, plus they get a 20 gigabyte music storage facility and a wireless phone charger. In addition, MediaPack XL buyers get the desirable MINI Connected XL system that offers journey planning tools and makes it even easier to hook up a smartphone for access to apps and music. Perhaps our favourite MediaPack XL package feature, though, is the Find Mate function that uses tags that attach to bags or keyrings or other items, so you can find them using the car's connectivity or via a mobile phone app. And you can use this to sound an alert that will help you find anything the Find Mate tag is fixed to. Countryman buyers persuaded by all that who opt for the MediaPack XL package will also get the opportunity to upgrade it and specify themselves the Mini Tech Pack. Now here you get all the MediaPack XL inclusions plus 3 other desirable features: a rear view camera, a head-up display that projects key information into your line of sight as you drive, and an upgraded Harman Kardon hi-fi system. On to aesthetics, which of course matter hugely to typical Mini buyers. If you've already specified that chili pack we were talking about earlier, then a simple way of giving your Countryman a really classy feel inside and out is to add in the Mini Yours pack. Now this provides carbon black full leather upholstery, bespoke interior illumination, a special leather trim steering wheel and unique 19-inch masterpiece alloy wheels. Alternatively, you can give your Countryman a more rugged look with an optic pack that includes piano black bumper inserts and also an aluminium effect sump guard at the front. You might well, though, prefer to make your own styling choices. For this, the starting point will lie in a perusal through Mini's wide choice of paint colours, including some really nice metallic shades. We've got British Racing Green here. On top of these, you can add distinctive stripes, so in black or red on the bodywork and in either white or black on the bonnet. You might want the roof and the mirror caps finished in body colour, or alternatively, you can have them finished in either black, red or white. For the wheels, there's a selection of no fewer than 15 styles in 17, 18 and 19-inch sizes. We've got 18-inch rims here. Now, if you'd like this Mini to have a really sporty demeanour, then there's a racy John Cooper Works roof spoiler and a John Cooper Works aerodynamic kit that provides a smart set of door sill finishers and more dynamic looking bumpers. Talking of John Cooper Works influenced kits, we should also mention that as an alternative to specifying the normal chili pack we were talking about earlier, your dealer can offer you the John Cooper Works chili pack. And that's there to give humbler Countryman models much of the look and feel of the top JCW variant, including that model's striking 18-inch Thrill alloy wheels. Now, as well as that, the package delivers all the standard chili features that we previously mentioned, and to that tally it adds a performance control system that really helps you get the power down through the corners. You'll want to get the interior just as you want it too. There are plenty of different cloth and leather upholstery options, and the optional John Cooper Works sports seats from that top model look good on lesser derivatives too. If you do go for the flagship JCW derivative, then you'll be offered the option of proper competition-style Recaro sports seats that can be trimmed in a lovely combination of Dinamica and leather. What else? There are 3 alternative Mini Yours illuminated finishes for the dash and door inserts, such as the piano black ones we have in this car, the alternatives being chestnut or British oak, and the extra cost anthracite headline that we've got here looks nice too. This Cooper D variant also has the chrome line interior option that adds some cabin sparkle with polished rings around the air vents, the door handles and the gear lever surround. So we've covered packs, multimedia connectivity and styling aesthetics. In addition to that, there are of course lots of other optional extras that have to be specified individually. So things like power folding mirrors, a panoramic sunroof, a quick clear windscreen and sun protection glass for the side windows that reduces heat buildup in the cabin. You might also want to get a rear centre armrest for the back seat and have the front seats fitted out with power adjustment and memory setting options. Or go for anti-dazzle interior and exterior mirrors. We would also want the Mini Trackstar tracking device that would make your Countryman almost impossible to steal. Optional driving features include firmer sport suspension and electronic damper control that works with the mid, green and sport mini driving mode settings, allowing you to tweak the ride to suit the mood you're in and, of course, the road you're on. Also useful would be the parking assistant, which can automatically help you to locate a space and steer you into it. Plus, there's an active cruise control system that will automatically keep you a safe distance behind the car in front on the highway. Now, if practicalities matter more, a detachable tow bar is available. If you add that, you can also specify a bespoke bike rack. Now, bear in mind that the only thing Mini provides as standard to help in the event of a puncture is a tyre mobility kit. So we would recommend that you either pay extra for the optional emergency spare wheel, or you fit out the wheel rims with the no-cost option of run-flat tyres. On to safety and a level of possible provision that seems an awfully long way from model founder Alec Issigone's original thoughts on the subject back in the 60s. When he was asked about the crash worthiness of the early Mini, he said, "I make my cars with such good brakes and such good steering that if people get into a crash, it's their own fault." Now, thankfully, things have progressed a bit in the safety department since then. So there are anti-lock brakes, of course, which include electronic brake force distribution, also cornering brake control, and a brake assist feature to help in emergency stops. And those will be advertised to following motorists by automatically activating dynamic brake lights. So you're always primed for a swift stop. There's tyre pressure monitoring, fading brake support and a clever brake drying function that will imperceptibly dab the discs in wet weather to keep them dry. There's also the usual stability control system and a DTC, dynamic traction control setup that in poor conditions will allow a bit of controlled slip at the drive wheels, so moving away on loose sand or deep snow can be a bit smoother. Now, if all that isn't enough to avoid an accident, then ISOFIX child seat fastenings, pedestrian-friendly bonnet and twin front, side and curtain airbags will all be welcome features, as will the eCall intelligent emergency calling system. Now, in the event of a crash, this setup automatically detects vehicle location and accident severity before contacting a call centre to initiate fast and effective assistance. Also standard is what Mini calls Active Guard, a front-end collision warning system that scans the road ahead for potential accident hazards. Now, if one's detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond, or perhaps you aren't able to, then the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Now, if you want to go further with electronic safety provision, then the main option lies in ticking the box for the Driving Assistant Pack, which delivers 4 further camera-based features. Active cruise control will automatically keep you a safe distance from the car in front on the highway. Plus, there's traffic sign recognition that pictures road signs as you pass and then displays them for you on the dash. Now, as part of this pack, you also get one of those active high beam systems that will automatically dip your headlights for you at night, and a rear end collision warning setup that alerts you if you're just about to get hit from behind, so you've got a chance to take avoiding action. In summary, then, it's a very useful pack to have. We suspect, though, that the good Sir Alec would have hated it. What we're promised here is small mini efficiency and big mini space. Now, it's a difficult combination of virtues to deliver, especially in a compact car mostly powered by large 2-litre engines. So can this Countryman really achieve it? Well, that's what's necessary if it's going to credibly take on segment-leading Qashqai class family crossovers. That's a job made even more difficult by the fact that this second-generation Countryman is heavier than its predecessor, weighing in at nearly 1.5 tonnes. To get the job done, the brand is relying on its usual minimalism technologies, things like brake energy regeneration, active cooling air flaps, the reduction of engine and transmission internal frictional losses, and ancillary engine systems that operate only when they're called upon, rather than constantly pumping away in the background. Plus, of course, there's a stop-start system to cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Automatic models can also work with the Mini navigation system to take account of your selected route and better control the gear shifts to suit. Of course, the driver needs to play his or her part too. There's a shift point display so you can optimally time your gear changes, plus there are various extra cost systems you can add that should help you further drive your running costs down. Now, first up is the MINI driving mode system that we're trying here. It operates via use of this rotary switch at the base of the gear stick, allowing you to change from a default mid mode to self-explanatory sport or green settings. Now, green mode modifies throttle and transmission response and tweaks the gear shift point display. Also useful is the so-called coasting function, where at high cruising speeds the drivetrain is temporarily decoupled for extra frugality when you come off the accelerator. The onboard computer provides two readouts which demonstrate the effect of the fuel savings that all of this creates. One that shows the extra mileage that's available and another that shows the reduced energy consumption. And finally, there is the minimalism analyzer that comes as part of the MINI connected media package. Now, that's there to score your driving and to guide you towards more economic progress. Now, it might initially seem to be a bit of a gimmick, but owners who've used it reckon on fuel economy improvements of between 4 and 8 miles per gallon. But enough on the theory of it all. Just how efficient can this MINI Countryman actually be in practice? In entry-level 3-cylinder petrol form, you might have high expectations here, and by and large, they're fulfilled. That's provided you realise that you're looking at a 1.5-tonne petrol-powered 136 bhp family car that's capable of rest to 62 in 9.6 seconds, and you don't go comparing it against something feebler and less capable. So, the base 1.5-litre petrol Cooper version that we're talking about manages 51.4 mpg on the combined cycle and 126 grams per kilometre of CO2. And those are stats that impressively aren't affected if you order the car with its optional 6-speed Steptronic auto gearbox. Inevitably, specifying all four-wheel drive does have an effect on the figures though. You're looking at 46.3 mpg and 139 grams per kilometre for a manual gearbox Cooper all-4 variant. Overall, you're looking at a car that'll be just under 10% pricier to run than Mini's slightly smaller club and family hatch model. Which isn't too bad a showing for this class of crossover. But just how minimalist can this Countryman model be with a great big 2-litre engine installed up front, as is the case with the diesel-powered Cooper D variant that we're trying here? Well, still pretty frugal is the answer. Now, this version manages 65.7 mpg on the combined cycle and 113 grams per kilometre of CO2 with either the 6-speed manual or the 8-speed automatic transmission, which is pretty much exactly what you get from a comparable 2-litre 150 bhp diesel Seat Attica, and significantly better than you get from an equivalent Volkswagen Tiguan. Include all 4-wheel drive, and on a manual Cooper D model, you're looking at 58.9 mpg and 127 grams per kilometre. As for the more performance-orientated Countryman models, well, let's start with the 190 bhp Cooper SD diesel, model offered only with auto transmission. Here, the figures are rated at 61.4 mpg on the combined cycle and 121 grams per kilometre of CO2, and they fall to 57.6 mpg and 129 grams per kilometre if you add in all 4-wheel drive. The alternative petrol-powered MINI Countryman Cooper S manages 45.6 mpg and 141 grams per kilometre, and that falls to 40.4 mpg and 159 grams per kilometre with the all-4 system added. You have to have all 4 with the top John Cooper Works variant, which in manual transmission form manages 38.2 mpg and 169 grams per kilometre of CO2. Of course, there is one other choice for Countryman buyers in the form of the Cooper SE All-4 Plug-in Hybrid variant. Now, this uses the same engine as a standard Cooper, but combines that with an 88 bhp motor that runs from a lithium-ion battery pack positioned under the rear seat. Now, drive this derivative with some care, and the over-optimistic NEDC official figures claim you could see a combined consumption of 134.5 mpg and 49 grams per kilometre CO2 emissions. Now, that is based, of course, on using the full 25-mile range of the battery, which can be fully charged in as little as 2 hours and 15 minutes from a dedicated charging point. So to help maximise efficiency, a provided eDrive toggle switch lets the driver of that electrified Countryman swap between auto, max and save battery modes. So in the first of these settings, a car will work on electric power alone up to 50 miles an hour, but if you select max, the car will have an all-electric top speed of 78 miles an hour. So in the save position, the system sends as much energy to the batteries as possible for future use, so you can store it until later in the trip when you might want to drive around town with zero tailpipe emissions. What else? Well, residual values are bound to be quite strong. The 3-year retention figures you get with Mini models are always well above class average, and experts are predicting depreciation of no more than around 50% in this case. That will also be helped by the way that Mini reliability improves with each generation, something evidenced by falling warranty claims. Maintenance stops vary according to use, and there's a teleservices feature that's part of the Mini connected media connectivity system that will alert you exactly when they're needed. As a rule of thumb, you can reckon on around 12,000 miles of Countryman motoring before a dealer visit is required. Almost all Mini buyers opt for the no-brainer TLC package, which for about £300 gives you comprehensive servicing cover for 5 years and 50,000 miles, whichever is reached first. Now that is half the amount that you might easily have to pay on some rivals over the same period. You can further extend that with a TLC XL option that takes this to 8 years and 80,000 miles. And should you sell the car before the end of the TLC term, then the balance goes with the car to the next owner. And finally, we should mention insurance groups. You're looking at 18E for the petrol-powered Club and Cooper model, or Group 17E if you get that variant with all 4-wheel drive. Go for this Cooper D diesel variant, and you're looking at Group 20E or Group 21E if you have the all-4 derivative. The petrol Cooper S model is rated at either Group 24E or 25E, depending on the variant you've chosen. And you're looking at Group 25E if you want the Cooper SD diesel. As expected, there's the usual 3-year unlimited mileage warranty, and the deal also includes a Mini MOT Protect assurance guarantee, stating that in the unlikely event your car should fail its first, second or third MOT test, Mini will cover the cost of repair or replacement on an array of selected parts. As with the Clubman hatch, Mini's concept here is to take all the things that loyal buyers of the brand love and then supersize them. In this case, though, the finished result needed the added fashionable feel of an SUV. That's not an easy fit, bearing in mind that the way a crossover class car looks and handles is about as far from conventional Mini motoring as it's possible to get. To be frank, we thought that Mini floundered a little in meeting that brief with the first generation Countryman model. This second generation version, though, is a much better effort. True, not everyone will like the way it looks, but at least this time around it's just about family sized, while just about retaining the required dose of Mini magic. Now, you're going to need to buy into that if you're going to like this car. If you don't, you could well find yourself criticising the firm ride and the premium pricing while thinking about cheaper rivals that offer more space inside. Most of those competitors, though, lack the sheer joie de vivre that comes with Mini ownership. Now, we get that. We like the clever little touches like the rear picnic bench. And we understand what a difference it makes when you can properly personalise your car in the way that Mini allows you to do. In summary then, though this Countryman might not be a perfect package, it can potentially be a very desirable one, providing you're prepared to spend in search of a satisfying spec. And once you've done that, there's a lot to like. Plug-in hybrid power is a strong option further up the range, and all the more conventional engines have something to be said for them too. In true Mini style, potential owners must still be people unafraid to fly in the face of convention. But if you are, then a bigger Mini adventure beckons.